Bookshelf. I'm Ariel Roshi. And today I'm going to be doing I Survived the American Revolution. This happened in 1776, and it, I think, is one of the biggest battles in history. And so then the American Revolution is really, literally creepy. It's about this boy named Nate, and he has this uncle named Sorge. So what happens is that Nate's dad died, and he used to be on a ship with his dad. And his dad's best friend was also the ship's jester. He's the funniest guy in the world. Kind of. My dad's funnier, he says. But he's not funny. His jokes are horrible. No offense to him. So then after his dad died and his dad's best friend goes to the army to prepare because he needs to, Nate goes on to his only other living relative, Uncle Sorge. And his dad has been warning him his whole life to stay away from Sorge. But he has no choice. Either he can live on the streets as a beggar, or he can at least try to live with Uncle Sorge. That doesn't work out. Uncle Sorge treats him like a slave, but Uncle Sorge does have at least a few slaves. I just say that this book is very exciting in some places, sweet in some places, and really, really creepy. I want to hide under the covers, creepy some places. But there's some things really, really funny in this book. Like when Nate foolishly decides to go and live on the streets as a beggar and then tries to escape into one of the boats. Would that be one of the boats where George Washington crossed the Delaware? I don't know if that happened in the American Revolution, but I think that's one of the boats that happened. I learned from this book that Nate was a slave. He had the courage to escape, even though that was a very foolish decision. I wouldn't call that so foolish, actually. He was able to be brave even when his dad died. He was very, very brave, and I think that it doesn't matter who you are. You can be a mouse or a teeny tiny crumb that's about to get eaten by a mouse. And you also need to stand up. You need to stand up to others, and you need to tell them that they did something wrong and that they're not supposed to do that. And you need to stand up for your own rights. Except that I'm sitting down right now. But I just say that that's the lesson for this one and this amazing book that I bet everyone should read. It's very historical fiction, a lot. I Survived the sinking of the Titanic, and this happened in 1912. The basic summary about this book is when George thinks he's the luckiest kid alive because he, his sister, and his aunt Daisy, they get to be on the Titanic, the greatest ship ever built alive. He keeps on exploring everywhere in the ship, even though it gets him into a lot of trouble. So on the first day, he climbed onto the very top of the ship, and then he said hi to Aunt Daisy, but then she nearly fainted because he was halfway up into the sky. Imagine if you could touch the clouds and they were made out of cotton candy. But then one night when he's off exploring, what happens is that the ship starts to shake because it hits an iceberg, and the iceberg creates a hole in it. What happens is that everyone wakes up. The Titanic, it starts to sink, and it's really, really creepy on this picture because they're almost falling down. And I really like that this is the graphic novel because then you get to see the pictures and you get to see what happens. I think that George is really, really, really scared when they're gonna jump into the water. They jump into the water because either they jump into the water and try to swim and get away, or they get buried by the wreckage. But it's worse when they're near the wreckage because the ship, they might be under the ship and the ship might push them down. So it's better when you jump. The lesson of this book is that sometimes when there's really scary things, you just need to get over it. That's the same thing happened with me when my tooth got pulled out because I didn't want to do it, but I just wanted to get over it because that way I don't have to, have the weight of it, keep reminding myself, okay, I need to get this done, it's gonna hurt. And also sometimes it just needs to happen without you knowing. So then that way that you don't worry about it and you're not just the same way that it happened with my tooth because I kept on making my dad not do it. But then he said that he was going to look at something in my mouth and then he just pulled it. I don't appreciate that That's not like my favorite way, but at least we got the two that safely. So I think that brings us to the end of this review. I survived the Wellington Avalanche, and this is a New York Times best-selling series. This happened in 1910, and the basic summary of this book is that so then like this girl named Janie, she's like basically like a criminal, but she helps this criminal named Malvo. And then what happened is that she has this little criminal plan here that Malvo told her. I'm just gonna call him Malvo for now, but I'm not sure if that's his name. So then Malvo's plan is that there's a whole bunch of thieves that took the jewels, right? But then her job is to take the jewels while that thief gets chased on. So when they finally catch the thief, they won't get the jewels. And then she takes those jewels, boards a plane to Seattle, and goes and takes it to another one of Malvo's cronies. And then she gets money from that guy because she did that job. Then she's supposed to use that money to buy a train ticket to go back to Seattle. And then she's supposed to get more jewels, you know? But she doesn't do that. She has a plan because this guy named Hammer is supposed to watch out for her when she's supposed to be boarding the plane. I mean the train. It's a Seattle Express train. So then what happens is that after she boards the plane, she meets this guy named Frederick and his dad. What happens is that she has to be polite because or else people are gonna suspect, you know, what happened to her. And just in case you're wondering, her parents died in this motorcycle accident, and then she's like happy because it's kind of like a teen, but she's like also kind of unhappy because she wants a family. But then when she meets Frederick and his dad, his mom's at Seattle, they're boarding to Seattle, so then she gets a first class ticket from them. Then when they get to the mountains of Casadias, an avalanche comes. You can probably guess that from the title, but it's the Wellington Avalanche. So then, why is it called Wellington? Well, you'll find out the answer to that. It's more like this, like little snowstorm, and then it comes and then it blocks the way of the train. They go to this little hut there, and then over there she hangs out there for the night, and with all the other passengers, plus 8 men from the mail train. So I would say that this book is amazing, and the lesson of this book is that you can always change. Like if you're bad in the beginning, then you can always change and be better. So I think the lesson is that you can always change. I survived the attacks of September 11, and this happened in 2001. The basic summary of this book is when Lucas loves football more than anything, video games, and anything that he's ever done in his life. So then, when his parents decide that it's a too much dangerous sport, and they decide to make him stop going to practice, and he has to speak to his biggest plan. His Uncle Benny, who's a firefighter and a former football star. It turns out that Uncle Benny was the one that wanted him to stop because he didn't want Lucas to get too hurt. But then he takes a train to the city instead of going to school. Wow, that sounds teenager-like. And he's only 10 years old. 3 more years to be a teenager. So then what happens is that when he gets there, after he talks a little with Uncle Benny, they have a few firefighter rescues. But then, the airplane, the American Airlines airplane, it crashed into one of the Twin Towers. So then all the firefighters are called onto duty, and then they have to stop the fire from destroying it. And that was a really scary time because there were like more than 1,000 people in that building. But then a second jet comes and then it zooms into the second Twin Tower. So then, well, double work. The fire was like on the top near the building, and the firefighters have to get all the equipment to the top. And it's really dangerous because then the top might fall down on them when they're coming up. So then, what they do is like, Lucas is really scared, but then his dad is also called to come in to the firefighter duty, and his dad isn't exactly that good with it because he used to be a firefighter, but then he got this horrible head injury. Then he had to stop being a firefighter for a little bit, but he's okay now, but he's not used to this kind of stuff because it's not like every single day a fire happens. The really scary part is when the twin buildings just collapse, And then some people, they're just like under the rubble, but then like it's like a little cave, and there are lots of people there, including, but then his dad and Lucas, they all go to the cave, the little cave-ish mountain of rubble, and then they find the people, and then they just stay there because like dust is everywhere, and then that's the really, really scary part. So then the lesson I learned from this one, well, anything can happen, and that was a really sad day in American history. And so with that, I'll say goodbye and see you later.